There's fraud, there's corruption, and there's unbelievable fraudulent corruption. And Elon Musk and a member of his DOGE team just uncovered something that is so mind-boggling, so earth-shattering. So we're going to show you coming up. But boy, what they got away with in the Biden administration, someone's got to go to jail for this. We're going to give you the details coming up in just a second. Also, I love Trump for trolling the left-wing media. He's now saying that he's very serious. He wants a third term. And he's planning on doing it. He's got ways around the Constitution. And they're just, it's like the cat with the laser pointer here. It's brilliant. We'll show you all the details of that coming up in a sec. And the best talking point against this whole trumped up fake signal gate outrage where they want somebody's head. What about the 13? What about the 13? You understand what I'm saying? We'll explain coming up in a second. And more chaos there over in the Democratic Party. They don't know where they're going. They don't know who speaks for them. They don't know what they stand for. And they're having this conversation very publicly. We'll show you what the libs are saying to themselves in a sec. Oh, and finally, over in the UK, imagine this. A toddler thrown out of preschool because he's apparently transphobic. A toddler. We give you those sad details and a whole lot more coming up right now. My name's Larry O'Connor, and you can call me Larry. Our episodes last about as long as your typical Hollywood marriage, but they're a lot more rewarding and satisfying, and you end up smarter and happier at the end of it, unlike the participants in the aforementioned Hollywood weddings. Thanks so much for being part of what we do here every day. Happy Monday to you, and goodbye, March. It's the last day of this dreadful month, and we'll be happy to turn the page and move on to a new one. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing, and thanks for liking. You know you already like what you're about to see, so go ahead and give us the thumbs up right now, would you? Elon Musk was in Wisconsin over the weekend. There's a huge Supreme Court election happening tomorrow. We'll get into the details of that a little bit later in this segment. But first, I want to show you what Musk did here at a big rally to try to drum up the vote and get people energized about making sure that the left doesn't take over the Wisconsin Supreme Court. He brought out one of his colleagues. His name is Mr. Gracias, I think Antonio Gracias, who's worked with Musk on various ventures. He's brought Gracias into the Department of Government Efficiency effort. And what he uncovered with regard to illegal immigrants and Social Security fraud is mind-boggling. Take a look at this.
Welcome my friend Antonio Gracias to the stage. I think so. Let's see, does it work? I can give you mine. Does it work? It'll be okay. I mean, Buzz Aldrin's still alive, and he went past the belts.
It worked. Is this working? Yeah, it's not now yet.
There you go. So, Antonio, can you tell us what you? Antonio is helping out with the Social Security. So, just trying to review Social Security, where you may have heard that we found 20 million dead people marked as alive in the Social Security database. This is so crazy. And then you'll notice there's a strange trend here where how many Social Security numbers were issued. Do you want to?
Yeah. So let me tell you what happened here. We started at the top of the system.
You want to talk about a lot of it?
We started at the top of the system, mapping the whole system of Social Security to understand where all the fraud was. And there's a lot of great people there that showed us really a lot of waste. And so that came up with a big list of stuff they're working on. You've heard some of that already, but this is what jumped out at us. When we saw these numbers, we were like, what is this? In 21, you see 270,000 people, goes all the way to 2.1 million in 24. These are non-citizens that are getting Social Security numbers.
Yeah, this is a mind-blowing chart.
Yeah.
It is, and we're going to pause on this mind-blowing chart for a second. All right, so those are the years that Joe Biden was president of the United States, which you see in front of you there. And as he just said, these are Social Security numbers assigned to non-citizens, which presumably the largest percentage of those non-citizens are in the country illegally or entered illegally and then were given asylum, which it's still, they're not citizens. They're not green card holding residents. They certainly shouldn't have a social security number, right? Social security number is your gateway into anything. And most states now assign driver's license to illegal immigrants or non-citizens. So you get that driver's license, you get that social security number, you can have a bank account, you can get a job, you can vote. Frankly, I mean, if you lie about your citizenship, which is pretty hard to check against if you've got one of these cards, this is astounding and never talked about and never revealed. And look at the spike. Look at the spike in numbers here, starting at 270,000. The fiscal year, by the way, is only half of the year. Part of it is in 2020, but I'm sure that the robust numbers really started good. And we're projected now for fiscal year 25 to get into the 900,000 range. That's because there were already people who were funneled into the system before Trump even became president, because the fiscal year begins on October 1st in the federal government. Look at 2024, which happened to be an election year. Over 2 million non-citizens issued Social Security numbers. And we're told by pointing this out, by the way, that Musk is trying to ruin Social Security. No. They've ruined Social Security by making it available to people who aren't even citizens in this country, who aren't even legally in this country. I mean, what's the point of being an American at this point? Take a look at how this plays out, and they'll explain exactly how this not only leads to fraudulent benefits, Social Security benefits, widow benefits, disabled benefits, Medicaid benefits, healthcare that you're paying for, all of these benefits that these non-government organizations, these immigration lawyers who were funded by the government, by the way, to help these illegal immigrants maximize the benefits that they're entitled to, thanks to the Democrats who rigged this system. Watch a little bit more here. It's maddening.
Just this literally blew us away. Like, we went there to find fraud, and we found this by accident. And this isn't political, by the way. My parents are immigrants. Yeah, this country's been great to us. My brother and sister all born in Spain. I'm pro-legal immigration. This is not political. This is not political. This is about America and the future of America. And there are a lot of good people in the system that pointed this in this direction. I want to honor them right now, that work in the government today, who took risks to show us these numbers and tell us what's going on. Yeah. So I want to stop for a minute. I want to honor those people today. Very good people. Very good people. I have been from DC to Social Security offices to the border to track this down, and very good people have helped us along the way. I want to thank them.
All right, 3 great important points there, and myths that the mainstream legacy media that's broken. You don't watch them anymore. That's why you're watching us and your other favorites on this platform. I appreciate that. But what you hear in those legacy media outlets is that, first of all, these are dunces who don't know what they're doing, and they're just going in with a wrecking ball, and they have no idea. They're stupid. Look at this guy. Obviously, he's rational, he's normal, he's sensitive, he's empathetic, and he's just trying to fix our country. All right, that's number 1. Number 2, you got to be a xenophobic bigot and a racist. Yeah. So Antonio Gracias, a legal immigrant from a legal immigrant family in this country, is a xenophobic racist. I'm sorry, bullshit. No, you don't have. It has nothing to do with race. It has nothing to do with xenophobia. It has to do with law and order and the rule of law. Legal immigrants who went through the hard process and expensive process of coming to this country legally, they are oftentimes the most outspoken opponents to this illegal immigration scheme that Democrats like to prop up. And thirdly, you'll hear it all the time that federal employees hate this. Federal employees are outraged. Federal employees are terrified. Federal employees, no. Actually, there are really, really good people who are civil servants, who actually have dedicated their lives to working for our government, who know what's wrong. They know who's on the job that doesn't need to be there. They know that their staff is padded way bigger to carry a bunch of dead weight. They know where the waste, fraud, and abuse is. And many of those people, I do a radio show in Washington, D.C. It's the morning show on our conservative talk radio station, WMAL. A lot of my listeners are federal employees. They'll call into my show. They'll say, I don't mind DOGE because we do have waste. We do have fraud. When DOGE walks in the door, those federal employees say, come here, I got to show you something. I've been screaming about this for years. So those are 3 myths, and you will never hear that. You will never hear those myths exposed as the fraudulent lies that they are in the legacy media, but you just heard it right here. All right, let's go.
Yeah.
This number, what this is when you come in the country, if you're illegal, there's a couple ways to come in. You come in through a port of entry, and you can tell them you're afraid, and they'll give you an asylum case. You'll get an interview, then you get in. That's one way to do it. Another way to do it is to just go to the border. Literally, this happened. I talked to Border Patrol myself. Elon was there too. I went to Laredo, and I went to Bronzeville. Elon went to Eagle Pass. You walk up to a Border Patrol officer, and you tell them you want to come in. They have a couple of choices. They could charge you with a misdemeanor or a felony under 1325, or they can make it an administrative offense, like a parking ticket, basically. They were told to do that, make it an administrative offense under the last administration. And then you go walk across the border. They do what's called a release from your own recognizance, and they give you an NTA, a notice to appear, which to appear to judge. The wait times on judges are like average 6 years. Look at Grok, you'll see it on immigration judges. There's only 700 of them. This is 5.5 million people, okay? So what happens then? Once you're in the country and you got asylum through one of these pathways, and we map the whole thing out, you can apply for a work document. You file a 765, it's the work form. You get this form called the 766, that's the authorization, and then Social Security Administration automatically sends you in the mail your Social Security number. No interview, no ID.
This is worth just reiterating. It's not people sometimes think that under the Biden administration that he was simply asleep at the switch. He wasn't asleep.
No.
They weren't asleep at the switch. It was a massive, large-scale program to import as many illegals as possible, ultimately to change the entire voting map of the United States and disenfranchise the American people and make it a permanent, deep blue, one-party state from which there would be no escape.
Look, if I hadn't seen this myself, I'm not sure I'd have believed it. I went through it myself and mapped it, and Elon is right. This is true. The defaults in the system from Social Security to all of the benefit programs have been set to max inclusion, max pay for these people, and minimum collection. That's what's happening. We found 1.3 million of them already on Medicaid, as an example.
All right, let's explain what you just heard. So first of all of these people who have been put in the system, they're also triggered to max pay minimum contributions. Contributions obviously is what you're paying out of your paycheck to help fund these entitlement programs that are were set up for American citizens to be able to help us in retirement through Social Security or death benefits if somebody that you rely on was on Social Security and died, et cetera, or disability payments. And then, of course, Medicaid. If you're under the poverty line, you can't afford your health care. This is all set up through Obamacare. Remember when Obama promised that illegal immigrants would not be eligible for free health care under Obamacare? Gee, how did this happen? And the way these people get into the system is they come into you just heard the explanation as to how they get their work documents, but then there's these non-government organizations who get paid by the federal government to help facilitate these people to get their benefits. When was the last time you're an American citizen? You work your ass off in this country. You work hard, you follow the rules, you follow the law, you pay your taxes. Has anyone ever pulled you aside and say, you're eligible for a lot of federal benefits that are paid for through tax dollars. Here, let me help shepherd you through the paperwork and the red tape. Anyone ever do that for you? Hell no. But your tax dollars are paying for nonprofits to do the exact same thing for people who are in the country illegally. Oh, you're in the country illegally? Oh, come with us. We'll help you out. Here's where you get your benefits. Here's your credit cards. Here's your debit cards that are funded by the government. Here's your cell phone funded by the government. Here's all of the things. Here's your work card. Here's your Social Security benefits, and we'll max it out for you in the system. And as you just heard, over 1 million people getting free health care that you're paying for in the system. And you wonder why these entitlement programs are upside down and set up like Ponzi schemes and are about to go bankrupt. And nobody wants to fix it. And you got these idiots protesting in front of Tesla dealerships, trying to drive down the stock price for Tesla, not even knowing what they're talking about, because this is the system that's been rigged and set up for failure and set up for non-citizens to be able to benefit from them. This is absolutely maddening. And Musk will take it now in terms of turning it into a vote.
We've gone through on every benefit program we went through, we found groups from this particular group of people, this 5.5 million people in those benefit programs. And then what was really, really disturbing us was why. We're asking ourselves why. Right. And so we actually just took a sample and looked at voter registration records. And we found people here registered to vote in this population, yes.
And who did vote?
And we found some by sampling that actually did vote. And we have referred them to prosecution at the Homeland Security Investigation Service.
Yeah.
Already.
All right. So listen, there's more to this, and you should check out and search for the full video of this presentation. It's great. But that's just a little snapshot of some of the work DOGE is doing. But also the reason that this is in Wisconsin and the reason that this is valid right now is because tomorrow is this special election in Wisconsin for a Supreme Court seat. And you'll see headlines today. Elon Musk is trying to buy a Supreme Court seat. All this outside money in Wisconsin. Musk is buying the seat. Just so you know, the liberal running for the seat, it's nonpartisan theoretically, but there's a liberal and there's a conservative. The liberal, her campaign has been funded to the tune of 77% outside Wisconsin money. 77% of her campaign funds have come from outside the state of Wisconsin. Okay, so don't talk to me about how some outsider is trying to buy the seat. That's all Soros money. It's all the same organizations and political action committees that are happy with this kind of stuff that you're laying out there. And the reason that he laid this out in Wisconsin is because the Supreme Court, the state Supreme Court of Wisconsin, has the ability to reject or approve whatever voter regulations the state of Wisconsin legislature puts through. When Governor Walker was in charge of the state, they put some robust photo IDs and various other regulations. You know how during COVID, they had all these drop boxes all through Wisconsin. And then this last time around, the legislature said, no, we don't need those drop boxes anymore. They're ripe for fraud. So let's get rid of them. And then the Supreme Court comes and, no, you have to have the drop boxes. They try to determine all these things. They're also going to redraw the congressional lines. The Supreme Court justices in Wisconsin will, and they'll tinker with the current makeup in the House of Representatives, which right now has a majority Republican representation. They'll change that. I mean, this is what's going on in our society right now. This is going on in this country. And if you're in Wisconsin and you're watching, dude, if you voted for Trump because you wanted him to secure the border, get a handle on illegal immigration, and deport the people who are in this country illegally, it's a no-brainer, man. Because you elect this woman, you put her on the Supreme Court, she will undo all of those efforts. The reason that you voted for Trump will be undone by her. And this is the dream. This is what Democrats are trying to do. This is exactly what they're trying to achieve in this country. And it's got to end. And by shining a light on it, by exploring, and actually, this is why they're all freaking out about Musk and DOGE and Trump going in and looking and exposing with full transparency exactly what's going on in these government organizations. Because as soon as the American people see what it is, they're going to be outraged. That's why they're freaking out. It's not because they don't like Musk. It's not because they don't like Tesla. They love electric cars. No, it's because they don't want you to know what they've been doing with your tax dollars. That's the bottom line. And that right there, huge fraudulent activity, rubber stamped by Joe Biden and the Democrats when they're in charge. And it's why we can't let them get back in charge again. I guess, hey, give us another like. Our likes are low today. What's going on? Do you not like do you want my glasses back? Is that the problem? Is it because I'm wearing my contacts? Very upset. I thought I looked pretty good, although my skin is a little shiny today. Folks, you know, this show is produced and presented by Town Hall Media, as you can see in our logo. Town Hall has several websites, townhall.com, hotair.com, PJ Media, redstate.com, Twitchy, and Bearing Arms. And we would love for you to get a VIP membership of all those Town Hall sites. If you go to townhallvip.com, you will get 50% off that membership if you use my name at checkout, LARRY. And if you support Town Hall and get that VIP membership, first of all, you're going to get a bunch of content behind the paywall that is only exclusive for VIP members. You also get an ad-free experience across the site, which is really nice because you don't have the display ads and things like that. And finally, you'll be helping our journalism. You'll be helping us with our investigative reports that we do and some of the great columnists. It keeps us free from having to rely on Silicon Valley and big tech for our advertising income. And that keeps us independent and that keeps us autonomous. So go ahead to townhallvip.com, get 50% off your membership. Use my name, Larry, LARRY. Thank you very much. So I don't know if you've recognized Trump's sort of habit of trolling the mainstream legacy media, but he likes to, I liken it to the cat with the laser pointer. You know, you've got the laser pointer. Trump is the person with the laser pointer, and the media are the cats just chasing it all around the room, up the wall, you know, onto the ceiling if they can get to it. And Trump just sort of like has fun making them dance around. The latest one over the weekend is that Trump very earnestly and very seriously telling reporters that he intends to run for a third term. And he's very serious about it. And he said, I'm not joking. I'm not joking. So CNN, before they actually talked about the story, they first ran a video montage showing Trump owning them and trolling them. It's like they know it. They acknowledge it, but they don't know it because they fall for it again. Here, take a look.
I'm not joking. President Donald Trump on the record saying he's not ruling out another run for the White House, telling NBC News, quote, there are methods by which he could do it. Now, the president is limited to 2 terms by the 22nd Amendment to the Constitution, but that has not stopped President Trump from flirting with this idea before.
It will be the greatest honor of my life to serve not once, but twice, or 3 times, or 4 times. Headlines from the fake news. Now it will be to serve twice.
Should I run again? You tell me. There's your controversy right there. There's your controversy.
CNN's Betsy Klein is live in West Palm Beach tonight. Betsy, he said he's not joking when asked about this, then also said that it's too early to be talking about it. What more is he saying?
Yeah, Jessica, you're absolutely right that this is not the first time this has come up, albeit a little tongue-in-cheek, as you just laid out. But President Trump openly talking about the prospect of seeking a third term in office, and he says this is not a joke. I want to read to you part of the transcript from the telephone interview he had with NBC News' Kristen Welker. Welker says, "Sir, I'm hearing you don't sound like you're joking. I've heard you joke about this a number of times," to which the president responds, no, I'm not joking. I'm not joking. The president goes on to say that
I just want to say, just so you know, I mean, I love, by the way, that he gave a telephone interview to Meet the Press's Kristen Welker. It's like Meet the Press says, President Trump, we'd love to have you on the show. And he's like, who's this, Kristen Welker? Meet the Press, NBC News? Yeah, I'll tell you what, give me a call. Yeah, I'll do it on the phone, right? I love that power move, first of all. But then the whole, it sounds like you're not joking. You're not joking. Here's Trump. Oh, I'm not joking. I'm not joking at all. I'm not joking. No, I'm very serious. Oh, no. This is 100%. I am not joking. Okay. All right, good. That's the whole point of a telephone interview. Oh, I love it so much. They know he talked about this on the back of Air Force One too. I'll show you that in a second. Well, I'll hold my comment for that video. Let's let them wrap this up.
that there are methods on which he could seek a third term. Welker asked if it's possible that Vice President J.D. Vance gets elected and then passes the baton. The president indicated that was an option, but he said there are others too. The president, of course, repeatedly said it is, quote, too early to think about it.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's fair to say, too, considering what we're 2 months into this. We've got 3 years and 10 months of this term of Trump, and already the entire mainstream media is going nuts. Mika and Joe must have just been beside themselves this morning about the authoritarian dictator who will never leave office. And there's a method to this. There is a method to this. All right, so here's Trump. Air Force One, he decides to leave. The front of the plane is where the president and his cabinet and whatever. They got their offices. They got the bedroom to do all that. And then there's this little room in the back of the plane where the media works. And so Trump goes back to talk to the media on the back of Air Force One here.
You said you were not joking about a third term, about possibly wanting a third term.
This is my favorite thing about the media, by the way. Can I just want to point this out. So Kristen Welker, you figure they respect her as one of the top journalists in Washington, D.C., right? Because she's the host of Meet the Press. So Kristen Welker, NBC News, Meet the Press, has Trump on the phone exclusively and says, it sounds like you're not joking. You want to run for a third term. Are you not joking? So you'd think that would be so. Then Trump goes to the back of the plane to talk to the media, and the first question is the exact same question that Kristen Welker asked. So why are you? What kind of stupid job do you have that your whole purpose, and there's only a handful of reporters on this plane, and your whole purpose is to ask the exact same question that was just asked by one of your colleagues on NBC News, so he can say the same thing to you that he just said? This is why people hate the media. Well, it's one of the many reasons why people hate the media. But sorry, I just wanted to interject there. It's like, it's so stupid. They're like, oh, we deserve to be on the plane. We got to be a part of the pool. We got to be in the White House Correspondents Association. We got to do these things. Why? So we can all ask the same stupid question. That's why.
Does that mean you're not planning to leave office on January 20th?
I'm not looking at that, but I'll tell you, I have had more people ask me to have a third term, which is in a way it's fourth term because the other election, the 2020 election was totally rigged. So it's actually sort of a fourth term in a certain way. I just don't want the credit for the second because Biden was so bad. He did such a bad job.
All right. So again, and by the way, I love the reporter's question. Does that mean you won't be leaving office in January of 28? Is this an insurrection again? Can we start with those graphics and red lights on our cable news Kairos? Look at Secretary of Commerce Lutnick over his shoulder. He's busting a gut. He's peeing his pants. He's laughing so much. And the reporters are like, oh, this is terrible. It's the end of it. We have another constitutional crisis. We're going to have to impeach him because he said he wants to run a third. Look at Lutnick. They're such idiots. And I love it. He said, really, it would be our fourth term because I won the second time around. Although I don't want credit for that because Biden ruined everything. So it wasn't really my second term, but I won the presidency that time too. And he's keeping a straight face because he's a great communicator and he can deliver this without breaking. But Lutnick can't hold it in. But you said you weren't joking. No, I am not joking at all. Meanwhile, everyone around is like, God, they're falling for it again. All right. So I will watch more of this.
And I think that's one of the reasons that I'm popular, if you're wondering the truth. I think I'm popular because we've done a great job. I think we've had the best almost 100 days of any president. And most people are saying that. And it's an honor. We're bringing back our country. We're respected as a country again. And we're strongly respected. And people are amazed. I was with some very important people today, and they said that they've never seen a turnaround of a country as fast as this. Even look at our border. We have nobody coming in. And you can come into a country, but you have to come in legally. But we have nobody coming in to our country. It's almost shut down. They've never seen anything like this.
An appropriate precedent limits a president to 2 terms. Is it your understanding that they have to
I don't
be?
even want to talk about it. I'm just telling you, I have had more people say, please run again. They said, we have a long way to go before we even think about that. But I've had a lot of people. Yeah, go ahead. Did you have something?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, do you think that's an appropriate precedent to set, even if it wasn't you in this position, to see a president serve a 3rd term?
I don't want to talk about a 3rd term now because no matter how you look at it, we got a long time to go. We have a long time. You know, we have almost 4 years to go. And that's a long time. But despite that, so many people are saying, you got to run again. They love the job we do. Most importantly, they love the job we do.
All right. So you see what's happening here, right? First of all, you got to love this. It's so like Trump decides to come back and talk to the reporters on Air Force One, and 80% of the questions are about this. And he's got to walk back to the front of the plane thinking, can you believe those idiots? They had me. They could have asked me about this or that or tariffs or Ukraine or Israel or the reconciliation. No, this is all they want to talk about. Okay, fine. You know, cat with the laser pointer. Secondly, every single time they ask him a question, is this appropriate? Is this a bad precedent? Are you never going to leave office? Are you a dictator? And all he does is say, you know, I really don't want to talk about this. I don't want to talk about a 3rd term. And then he's able, you know, because it's played everywhere across cable news because the headline is Trump is talking about a 3rd term when he's literally not talking about a 3rd term. But they're going to play the video of him saying, you know, everybody's saying we're doing such a great job and everyone wants us to run. And this has been the best 100 days. So this is his way of getting on television, talking about what a great job he's doing, but not actually saying, you know, presenting the topic. He's just answering a question. The question is about a 3rd term. So he's planting the seed in the minds of the American people that he's doing such a great job that we would like to throw out the Constitution and let him have a third term, which he doesn't have any intention of doing, but this is giving him the opening to be able to tell the American people how great he is. And the media is playing right into it. All right. So everyone said, well, how can this even happen? How can it happen? Well, here's what could happen. J.D. Vance runs for president. Trump is his running mate, because the language of the 22nd Amendment is that you can only be elected president twice, but he's not elected president. He's elected vice president. See, and then Vance steps down and then he becomes president. But see, here's the problem with that one. To be a running mate on a ticket for vice president, you have to be eligible to be president. In other words, you can't pick somebody under the age of 35 to be vice president because they have to be eligible to be president. You can't pick somebody who's not a natural born citizen of the United States because they're not eligible to be president. So if Trump is ineligible to be elected president, I don't think he can run as Vance's running mate. But here's what can happen. So Vance and Marco Rubio run for president and they win. Then Rubio steps down. Vance selects Trump to be vice president. He's confirmed by the House of Representatives. Then Vance steps down. Then Trump becomes president. Trump third term. I'm kidding. None of this is going to happen. None of it's going to happen, but it's not stopping everybody from talking about it because they have to, because they're the cat and Trump's got the laser pointer. So take it away, girls on The View.
I actually think that he is so enamored of Putin and so enamored with power that he wouldn't mind being king, with the crooked crown. I don't know that it's something that can ever be accomplished because we know that FDR historically had 4 terms. And so they ratified the 22nd Amendment in 1951, making sure that a president could only run 2 terms, consecutively or non-consecutively. So in order to really legally do this, he would probably have to change the 22nd Amendment, and you would need like 34 states, 3/4 states to ratify that. So I don't think it's ever going to happen. Right. That doesn't mean he's not going to try.
Thank you, MRC and Newsbusters, for the clip. Oh my God, I love this so much. So how long did they spend on this on The View? 5 minutes, 10 minutes with everybody wringing their hands and screaming dictator, which is, by the way, 5 or 10 minutes that they're not talking about other things that they could be criticizing Trump over. So they're criticizing Trump over something that is literally not a real thing. CNN, look how serious we are on this. This is a constitutional crisis, my friends. Trump is shredding. He'll never leave the office. He's taking control of the military. This is a coup.
The 12th Amendment seems to preclude that. So really what you're talking about is either complete, and utter chaos outside of our system, some sort of dictatorship where we don't actually have elections, which of course we hope doesn't happen, or something where the former president would become the Speaker of the House and then the president and the vice president would resign, in which case, of course, you would see court challenges because that goes against the spirit, if not actually the specific words in this 22nd Amendment. So
complete and utter chaos, my friends. That's right. I had forgotten that scenario. 100%. That's the ticket. All right. One more time. Vance and Rubio run for president, vice president. Rubio steps down. Vance, but wait, at the House of Representatives, Mike Johnson steps aside. They elect Trump as Speaker of the House because you don't even have to be a member of the House of Representatives to be Speaker of the House of Representatives. And there's no rule against a former president being Speaker of the House. In fact, we've had a former president run and serve in Congress for many years. John Quincy Adams spent more time as a member of the House of Representatives post-presidency than he did as president of the United States. He only served for 4 years as president, and then he was defeated by Andrew Jackson. So the House of Representatives elects Donald Trump to be Speaker. Then Vance and Rubio resign on the same day. Trump becomes president because that's how the succession goes. And that's how we get the third term from Donald Trump. There you go. It's been solved. That's not going to happen. And guess what? Trump doesn't want a third term. And he is joking. And the media fall for it every single time. And once again, look at how serious they are. Look at what a crisis this is. Look at what chaos we're in. And it never gets old. And I hope Trump does this every single week so that they waste their time on it. If you like our show, we would love for you to go to our merchandise store over at, I don't know what the website is. Is it shop.townhall.com? I don't know, but the best thing is you can get a Larry mug over there, a Larry mug, so you can identify as Larry. You can basically be a trans Larryder. You may not have been born a Larry, but you identify now as a Larry. And so when you're drinking your beverage of choice, hopefully an adult beverage, out of this mug, and then somebody says, why do you have Larry's mug? That's not your mug. You can always say, you can call me Larry. So go to store.townhall.com, get your Larry swag. We've got other swag too over there for all of our sites and some pretty good conservative memorabilia and merchandise there. I think you'll like it. Go to store.townhall.com. By the way, I need to hear from you in the chat. We're thinking about, I know how much you love Jeb. Jeb, our mascot, the show's mascot there, Generalissimo Jeb. We're thinking of putting Jeb on a coffee mug and on a t-shirt. Would you be down with that? Would you buy a Jeb coffee mug or t-shirt? Let us know in the chat. Appreciate it very much. Let's get to that. Store, is it store.townhall.com? Yeah, not shop, store.townhall.com. Check it out today. The media continued to try to make a big deal out of this not very big deal. The kerfuffle, the flap, I don't know what you want to call it at this point, but the use of Signal, an encrypted messaging service that is in fact preloaded on government devices when people join the federal government and work in the executive branch. It's obviously an approved platform. But that conversation that happened during the military strike against the Houthis, set up by Mike Waltz, the national security advisor, and participated with all the top people. They want Waltz to be fired. They want Hegseth to be fired. They want heads to roll. And yet there's one talking point that we've seen now finally start to come through here that silences critics in their tracks. It's the one thing that nobody has an answer to. You think somebody should be fired because of a successful military strike against terrorists that Biden didn't do anything about. You think someone should be fired because they had a conversation on the encrypted Signal app regarding that successful military strike. But what about the 13? What am I talking about? Well, I'll let Stephen A. Smith, of all people, who has been slowly morphing his sports-oriented podcast into a sports pop culture political podcast. I'll let him make the case. What about the 13?
But when we want to sit up there and look at the latest controversy that they're involved in terms of national security information, in terms of attacking the Houthis, with Mr. Hegseth himself, who to me falls under a DEI category, by the way. And we want to talk about this man being fired. Were y'all talking about people being fired when Biden pulled troops out of Afghanistan? When at least 13 lives were lost? When billions in equipment were left in Afghanistan? The sloppy manner in which we parted ways? Were you talking about the same thing then? Because this ain't worse than that.
That's right. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth has to be fired because he talked about details of a military strike against the Houthis, terrorists that had gone unabated against our military for 4 years under Joe Biden. And yet, when we had our slipshod, embarrassing, deadly withdrawal of our military from Afghanistan, and 13 service members were murdered, and not one person lost their job, not Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin, not Jake Sullivan, the National Security Advisor. Nobody lost their job. Nobody got fired. Nobody got demoted. When 13 service members were murdered on Joe Biden's watch because of their incompetence. And you want somebody to lose their job over using the Signal app? What about the 13? What about the 13 service members? If you had nothing to say about that then, you have absolutely nothing to say about this now. Scott Jennings, CNN. What about the 13?
Isn't
cowboys and Indians and calling for scalps. This is actually what most people would think was, if someone has behaved in a way that puts American lives at risk, they should be held accountable for it.
Scott, what's your response?
Laura, may I, since she addressed me, I'll answer it.
Please.
In a Democratic, you don't have to make up hypotheticals, Lulu, about if this happened in a Democratic administration. Let me take you back in time. In a Democratic administration, the Secretary of Defense oversaw a disastrous military operation in which 13 servicemen died in Afghanistan. Then, to try to make up for it, they vaporized like 7 children in a drone strike. Then later, the Secretary of Defense went AWOL and didn't even tell the commander-in-chief.
This is a completely
you don't
different
have to
thing
come
that
up
you're,
with a hypothetical,
these are two
Lulu,
different things that you're discussing.
the bar
And I can
apparently
take you
is
back in
very
time,
high,
Scott, and I
very
can
high
talk
for
about the Iraq
dismissing
War.
a Secretary of Defense.
I don't want your words
Scott,
to
we
fall
can-
on
we can
ears
do
that
this as
cannot
much
hear
as you
you.
like.
Lula, what's your reaction?
My reaction is, it's not the same thing. I can take you back in time and talk about the Iraq
You're
War.
right, because people
There are
died.
different things
People
that
died in the
make.
last
There
case
are
and not
people
in
make
this case.
mistakes. This was using an unsecure method of discussion by the top members of this administration to discuss top secret, a top secret and
Who
very
in which case did people die?
military
In which
officer.
case did people die?
Finish her point, Scott.
Yeah, she's reduced to babbling nonsense because there is no coherent argument against that. What about the 13? And again, let me take you back to the beginning where she makes her case why somebody should get fired over this signal flap kerfuffle BS. Listen to her words.
Isn't cowboys and Indians and calling for scalps. This is actually what most people would think was, if someone has behaved in a way that puts American lives at risk, they should be held accountable for it.
So if somebody behaves in a way that puts American lives at risk, they should be held accountable. Puts American lives at risk. Literally 13 service members lost their life because of their incompetence, their misjudgment, their hubris, their arrogance. They didn't put lives at risk. They literally lost their lives. And she says, oh, well, that's different. That's completely different. Oh, I see. So if Lloyd Austin and Jake Sullivan and Joe Biden and Kamala Harris had been discussing the strategy for the Afghanistan pullout on Signal, and that led to 13 lives lost, then people should be fired. But if they discussed it on a secure line and then people literally got killed, they're fine. They're off scot-free. You have to be a liberal Democrat to think in these terms. It literally makes no sense. They have absolutely no logical basis for their argument because they're blinded by political hatred. And they're just trying to find something, anything, because they've got nothing. What about the 13? Senator Mark Warner, Virginia, I'm told that he's a very serious man. This is a man who claimed he was only going to run for 2 terms in Virginia. He's now in the middle of his 4th term. There's a word for that. He's a liar. And he's trying to make the case that somebody should get fired over the signal flap. Joe Kernan, CNBC. What about the 13?
You remember the Biden administration started with the biggest F up in history with Afghanistan and 13 dead Americans. Let's not get too sanctimonious and high and mighty about screwing up,
Senator. Go back even to,
okay, that's only 4 years. That's only 4 years, Senator.
I'm surprised, Joe. You're not going to throw in. You're not going to throw in.
Yeah, I am. I just
the Hillary servers. But let's, Joe.
She wiped that clean with a cloth.
At least
remember?
Acknowledge. No,
I do.
This was a screw up.
I do.
If the Houthis, the bombing was a success. God bless. Thank God the person on the line wasn't an Iranian spy, and they could have given that to the Houthis, and that bombing success might have turned into something that cost American lives. At least acknowledge that's what's at stake. And if that kind of mistake is made, and I go back to what I said in the earlier teaser, if this was a military officer or a CIA case officer, their butts would be fired.
And yet nobody got fired over Afghanistan. And there were officers involved in that. And there were CIA case officers involved with that. So Mark Warner is more concerned about the encrypted platform that was used to discuss this thing, which, by the way, it didn't include the details that they did talk about on what is quoted in the Signal chat as the high side, which is the higher level secure form of communication. So they were fully aware of what should be discussed. Yet this is nonsense. They're making up a complete and total fraudulent argument here. But he had no answer on what about the 13. All he said was, oh, that was 4 years ago. Really? And what was he laughing about, by the way? What's with all the smiles and laughter? Look at him. Look at him. Look at his laughter over the loss of 13 service members. He doesn't care about them. What about the 13? He has no answer other than, oh, that was then, this is now. Let's let JD Vance have the last word on this because he brought it up too. Once again, in the context of people going nuts about the Signal chat. He was part of the Signal chat, and he has a pretty fair argument about this. It's the theme of this segment. What about the 13?
I find the American media's obsession with this issue very, very interesting because I happen to remember about 4 years ago when American military leadership made a catastrophic error that got 13 innocent Americans killed in Afghanistan and had about $80 billion of military equipment turned over to one of the worst terrorist organizations in the world. And for years, the American media ran cover for a Biden administration that refused to fire any generals or even launch an internal investigation that was meaningful and substantive about what happened. And now the same American media that covered for the Biden administration after the untimely death and the unnecessary death of 13 brave Americans is really, really interested in forcing the president of the United States to fire someone because of a Signal chat, That is not honest behavior from the American media. And if you think you're going to force the president of the United States to fire anybody, you've got another thing coming. President Trump has said it on Monday, on Tuesday, on Wednesday, on Thursday. And I'm the vice president saying it here on Friday. We are standing behind our entire national security team.
Thank you. In fact, the way Trump told Kristen Welker on this, as she pressed it to, are you going to fire somebody or fire somebody? He said, no, I don't fire people over fake news and witch hunts. What you just heard from JD Vance is 100% accurate. This is complete and total disingenuous bullshit. They know it, by the way. They're just trying to change the subject because Trump has soaring popularity. His policies are incredibly popular with the American people, and they're trying to drum up a fake scandal to steal the headlines. And what JD Vance didn't say when he said this is just dishonest behavior from the media, what he meant to say, I'll say it. They're all shameless liars. Hey, speaking of shameless liars, that's the name of my book, Shameless Liars, How Trump Defeated the Legacy Media and Made Them Irrelevant. It catalogs all of the details of the 2024 presidential election and all the lies that were told, not just about Trump and Vance, but on behalf of defending Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and Tim Walz. It also has a way forward about how the mainstream media is now irrelevant, how legacy media has lost any influence that they once had in this country, and how now you have the power to go past the gatekeepers and pick media that is directly informing you, like this show that you're watching. So check out my book. You can get it in hardcover, paperback, or audiobook. I narrate it. It's Shameless Liars, available on Amazon. Thank you. London is falling, or maybe London has just fallen and can't get up, because we have one of the most Looney Tunes stories out of London right now. I hoped that this was fake news. I hoped that this was The Onion or Babylon Bee or some sort of hoax story, but it appears to be true. Let's turn to GB News here and have them first set it up for you.
A toddler was suspended from a nursery after they were accused of being transphobic or homophobic. I just cannot believe this. The Department of Education data revealed the child is either 3 or 4 years old. A DOGE, a Department of Education spokesman, said all pupils and staff should feel safe I can't believe I'm reading this, should feel safe and protected at school and should never face violence or abuse. The Education Secretary has been clear that she expects school leaders to enforce good behaviour, and we are committed to a comprehensive programme of behaviour to support all schools.
He's speechless, and we're all speechless. All right, what is this all about exactly? All right, let's turn to the LBC website. LBC is a talk radio, actually, London Broadcasting Company. I think they now go by leading the British conversation. It's basically they're trying to employ talk radio styles and formatics there in England, which is something new. America really has only been the bastion of talk radio and streaming content like this. And they have the story. Let's check it out. Toddler kicked out of nursery for being transphobic. A child aged either 3 or 4 was suspended for abuse against sexual orientation and gender identity, data from the Department of Education showed. The incident took place during the 22-23 academic year at a state school, according to the Telegraph. Further details of the case were not disclosed. In the same academic year, 94 pupils of state primary schools were suspended or permanently excluded for transphobia and homophobia, 10 of which were from year 1 and 3. That means, 5 to 7 years old. And from year 2, where the maximum age is 7. Okay, so we'll get into details in a second, but just so you know, to be a toddler, to be in preschool, they call it nursery, it's preschool. You're 3 or 4 years old and you're transphobic. So does that mean that you had to have acted out against a fellow student, same age, who is transgender? Does that mean that we have parents who were presenting their 3-year-old as choosing a gender other than the biological sex of which they were born? And then a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old behaves completely naturally and normally when their friend Jimmy shows up as Jane the next day and says, "What the hell are you doing? Why are you dressed?" Well, all right, 3-year-old probably wouldn't say, "What the hell are you doing?" But they're like, "You're not a girl, you're a boy. That's it. Transphobe. You've got to be expelled." Or maybe it was the teacher. Maybe the teacher is a dude in a dress and a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old says exactly what a normal person, you know what they always say, what I love about children is that they're so honest. I love children because they're so honest. There's no pretense. There's no guile. Children will just tell you exactly what's on their mind. They'll be completely honest about it. Yeah. So when a teacher shows up and it's a dude with a 5 o'clock shadow and a dress saying, "Call me Mrs. Jones," sorry, Ms. Jones. And the 4-year-old who's very honest says, "But you're a dude." I guess then that means the 4-year-old is being transphobic. Helen Joyce, director of advocacy at Sex Matters, told the paper, "Every once in a while, the extremes of gender ideology throw up a story that seems too crazy to believe, and a toddler being suspended from nursery for so-called transphobia or homophobia is one such example." Worse still, this is not an isolated case. Apparently 13 4- and 5-year-olds were suspended or permanently excluded from school for the same reason. How do you suspend a 4-year-old for being... They need to define what transphobic is, by the way. Transphobic? This is outrageous. And this is what happens, by the way, in a country that has such an overwhelming government control over such things, where even the so-called conservative party is not so conservative compared to American politics. Teachers and school leaders involved in this insanity should be ashamed of themselves for projecting adult concepts and beliefs onto such young children. Thank you. By the way, that goes on both sides of this. If there is a child who's being put into school in preschool, in a gender swap situation, those parents need to be looked into. What are you doing to your 4-year-old? Allowing them to do this exploration into transgenderism when they literally don't know what they're doing. At what point do parents not actually have to show some level of maturity and wisdom? This is your child. What are you doing? It's unforgivable for children's vital early education to be so traumatically disrupted by school leaders who prioritize activist demands over their charges' well-being. Well said. Number of pupils expelled or suspensions and exclusions in the year 22-23 was Essex with 16, closely followed by 15 in Birmingham, 11 in Bradford, and 8 in Norfolk. Figures only began in the 2021 academic year. What were we doing before 2020? My God, how all of the instances of transphobia and homophobia that weren't registered in England prior to 2020, that's an absolute outrage. Director of the Free Speech Union, Lord Young, said it beggars belief that schools are suspending children as young as 5 for breaching their transphobia policy. I would have thought that if your ideology is so rigid it justifies you punishing toddlers for not complying with it. It's a powerful argument for discarding it in favor of something less dogmatic. Well said, sir. Lord. We only have one Lord here in America. A DFE spokesman said all pupils and staff should feel safe and protected at school and should never face violence or abuse. So the spokesperson for the Department of Education did not say, oh, no, this is a mischaracterization. That's not what happened. No, they're totally buying into it. The Department of Education in England is basically saying, well, yeah, you're hell right. We expelled the kid for being transphobic. All kids should feel safe. Well, how about the kids who speak their mind and give their honest opinion when they're 4 years old? Don't they deserve to feel safe? Education Secretary has been very clear that she expects school leaders to enforce good behavior, and we are committed to a comprehensive program of behavior support for schools. Our plan for change sets out our relentless focus on making sure every child gets the best life chances, no matter their background, including establishing free breakfast clubs in every primary school, providing access to mental health support, and making attendance one of the 4 core priorities of our school improvement teams. I can suggest who should be getting some of that mental health care in this scenario, but I don't want to get canceled in England. Good God, you Brits, I know we got a lot of Brits that actually watch this show. What is happening? And is it too late? Can you not pull back from this? 4-year-olds, toddlers being accused of transphobia. By the way, what about the poor kid who's now been told that they can't go to school and play with their friends and get their education now because they honestly saw some dude in a dress and said, hey, that's a dude in a dress. Something wrong over there. And by the way, if you're concerned about this country, you should be, because that's exactly where we're headed here. All righty. So there's a lot of hand-wringing and open conversation right now about where the Democratic Party is, right? They lost that election. They seem to be shiftless and rudderless right now. They don't really have a central person who speaks on their behalf. And we're okay with that, actually. We sort of like it. But we do want to explore what this conversation is, what they're saying, and whether it's getting worse before it gets better. Because, well, pop the popcorn is kind of fun when your political opponents are disintegrating before your very eyes. So let's start with Stephen A. Smith, who was on Bill Maher's show on HBO.
The man was impeached twice. He was convicted on 34 felony counts. And the American people still said, he's closer to normal than what we see. Exactly. Left. That's what they're saying. He's closer to normal. Why? Because something that pertains, when you talk about the transgender community, for example, and you're talking about the issues that pertain to less than 1% of the population, the Democratic Party came across as if that was a priority more so than the other issues. And so he comes into office. Now you're talking about childbirth, citizenship, and what have you. He knows that's not going to pass the mustard, but he knows that he made that promise. So when he shows up week 1 on Capitol Hill and he says, this is what we're going to do through an executive order, even though it's going to be shot down through the courts and what have you, he's saying, I kept my promise. A lot of other things that he's going to point to that he's going to try to do. I kept my promise. Then you turn around and you look at the left and you say, what promises did you keep? Now, you might know the answer to that. I'm certainly not questioning your knowledge about that at all. What I'm saying is what resonated with the voter. What voter out there can look at the Democratic Party at this moment in time and say, there's a voice for us, somebody that speaks for us, that goes up on Capitol Hill and fights the fights that we want them fighting on our behalf. They didn't do that. And that's why their behinds are home, and that man is back into the White House, and they want to sit up there and talk. You look at the networks right now, they're talking about, look at it, this is the latest, look at him, here he goes again. Well, you know what here he goes again means? He's doing what he said he was going to do. He promised you he was going to do these things, and he walked into office week 1, and that's exactly what he's doing. And he's saying, y'all do something about it. And when you try to do something about it, he's going to say, look at them now. Now they're concerned about these issues. Were they talking about that during the campaign? Hell no.
All right, let me break this apart and tell you how Stephen A. Smith is wrong. And let me start at the beginning. I got nothing. He's 100% right. That's 100% spot on. There's no denying it. In fact, the very first point that he made is the most overwhelming and emphatic point that Democrats still can't get a handle on, which is everything that you threw at him. You called him an insurrectionist. You called him a dictator. You called him authoritarian. You called him a Russian puppet. You said that he had stolen the election. You called him a violent, race baiter. You tried to imprison him multiple times. You threw all of these trumped up fake court actions against him in New York, in Atlanta, in Washington, D.C., where the juries were overwhelmingly stacked against him, where there was no way he was going to get acquitted. You tried to keep him off the ballot by claiming that he was a convicted felon, and so therefore you shouldn't even have the right to vote for him. And the American people still saw him as a better representative for their views, their values, their opinions, and what they want got done than the choice they had with the Democrats. As awful as you set this guy up to be, and everything you threw at him, and you tried to demonize him, you put him through all of that, and the American people, weighing the two choices, said, yeah, we're better off with him. And Democrats still can't figure that out. They refuse to come to terms with that. I think if they actually did come to terms with it, it would be such an existential crisis for who they are and what they stand for that they'd have nothing else. Because understand something, for the last 10 years, the Democrat Party has stood for one thing and one thing only, opposing Donald Trump, which is not something you build a party out of. And as we mentioned on the show last week, the one thing that they back when they did stand for something was during the Obama administration. And it was Obamacare. Oh, we're going to fundamentally, radically transform the United States of America. This is the fundamental change we've been waiting for, fundamental change. And now Affordable Care Act is hardly affordable. In fact, it's more expensive than it's ever been. And if you look at the chart of healthcare costs in this country, they spike right at the beginning of when the Affordable Care Act was implemented, which, by the way, most of us warned you about and told you was going to happen. And then you've got Ezra Klein, hanging out with Jon Stewart, lamenting the fact that all the liberal progressive plans that they wanted during the Obama years, that was going to be the utopia they finally got, none of them have been implemented. Absolutely none of them. And that was the pinnacle. That was the peak of Democrat progressivism and what the party stood for under Obamacare. They're still beholden to Obama. They still think he's a saint. They can't come to terms with the fact that he has ruined the party, turned them into the reactionary Alinsky force that they are, and all they can do is oppose Donald Trump. Nobody can say who they are and what they stand for. Stephen A. Smith is 100% right. And so now, basically, they're all trying to vie for the future of the party. Here's Michael Bennet, Democrat of Colorado. We're told that he wants to run for president. We're told that he's a moderate. There's no such thing as a moderate Democrat anymore. They've been kicked out of the party. They've been weeded out. This is the party that was formed in the vision and makeup of Barack Obama, a radical community organizer. And so this is why they'll never acknowledge it. But if they look in the mirror or if really do some soul searching, that's who they are now. And there's no turning back. They have to completely reorient the party if they want to. But here's Michael Bennet. The knives are out. He's going after Gavin Newsom, of all people, because he's breaching the orthodoxy by having Charlie Kirk on his podcast. Here, watch.
Governor Gavin Newsom went so far as to say the Democratic brand is toxic right now. Senator, those are powerful words. Do you agree that the Democratic brand is toxic?
I do agree that the Democratic Party brand is really problematic, and I think that it is a brand that is, with all respect to my colleague from California, is associated with New York and with California, is associated with the educated elites in this country, and not anymore with working people in this country. You know, the good news is for the party, I think, is that Donald Trump is pursuing the same trickle-down economics that he pursued the first time he was president, to make sure that he can create again the tax cuts for the wealthiest people in the United States and pay for it by taking away health care from the American people. That's really bad for America. But the Democratic Party ought to be able to come back under those circumstances with a pretty good argument about why we could lead better than Donald Trump and why we are able to provide a better set of economic policies, a much better set of healthcare policies that ensures universal healthcare finally for everybody in this country. And as a former school superintendent, actually has something to say about the fact that we're running an 18th century school system in America, and our kids desperately needed to be a 21st century school system that makes them competitive again. Our kids are invisible to Donald Trump. And if the Democratic Party would show up with some imagination, I think not only would we do better, the American people would do better.
Yeah, so that's a fascinating thing, and he's trying to triangulate and juxtapose himself against the Democrats. So here he is railing against the Democrats too. But let's break down what he had to say there. First of all, yeah, you're right. The Democratic Party brand is in big trouble right now, but it's because of those crazy California, New York liberals who have ruined the party. Right here in the middle of the country, here in Colorado, we're doing things right. Yeah, what do we know about Colorado right now? Colorado led the way in legalizing pot smoking. So you got a bunch of dirtbag, drugged out hippies urinating and defecating in the streets of Denver. Have you been to Denver lately? Have you smelled the fresh air there in Denver? Rocky Mountain High has taken on a whole new meaning. High taxes, lousy school system, and all the benefits for illegal immigrants there. And so, excuse me, Senator Bennett, how exactly is Colorado different than California, except you don't have any coastline? No palm trees? Other than that, I'm at a loss. Okay. And then what was the last thing you said about the school system? Our public schools are in an 18th century model, and we need to update it and revamp it. And who has run the American public school system for the last 100 years in this country? Who has called the shots top to bottom at the state level, the local level, at the federal level? Democrats have had carte blanche, a blank check for whatever they want for the public school, the government-run school system. Every time Republicans try to put through any reforms, whether it's school choice, a voucher system, sending the money back to the states and dismantling. Yeah, you got complaints about the school system right now. You got complaints about the education and the curriculum and the radical policies. And you think Colorado is pristine? Your state is leading the way in the dysfunction, and the Democrats have caused it all along the way. So he may be right that there's a problem, but he has no idea that the call's from coming inside the House, Senator. All right, let's get out of the politicians, get back to thought leaders. Here's Maureen Dowd, columnist at the New York Times, the elite of the elite. She represents your New York liberal Democrat. Let's see what she has to say about the state of the party.
They just stopped being any fun. I mean, they made everyone feel that everything they said and did and every word was wrong. And people don't want to live like that, feeling that everything they do is wrong.
No. You think we're over that era? Do you think that?
No, I think,
right.
I mean, I think Democrats are just in a coma. They haven't figured out.
Right. But no, the woke are not giving up on that. I mean, we the Seven Dwarves movie just came out.
Oh, right.
And
there are no dwarves, right?
They fought about the dwarves. It's so funny. This is again one of my big problems with progressives. They're so stupid so often about things that they find their way back to something that's very unprogressive. Like you think getting jobs for people, very progressive. Not if you're a dwarf, because like there are dwarves out there who wanted to play these parts who couldn't because it was somehow politically incorrect to
Right.
portray dwarves as, I don't know, minors who know Snow White. It's a fucking crazy character that somebody invented for children. And you're arguing about whether it's right if real dwarves play dwarves. There are dwarves in the world.
Right.
And there are jobs for them that you lost
Right.
on there. And then Snow White loves Palestine. Like, I wasn't going to see this movie anyway. But, you know, that people who get their news from TikTok,
Yeah.
just please shut the fuck up.
It was, I think the Democrats just got to have a suffocating persona where you just couldn't do anything or say anything that wasn't to be criticized.
Somebody once wrote, "The politics of purity makes people stupid and mean."
Was that you?
It was you, fool.
Oh.
That's kind of funny, actually. Maureen Dowd is right as well, although I am worried about the fact that she talks without actually moving her mouth or making a facial expression. There may have been a little... Do I need that? Do I have too many lines up here? Should I get the injections? No, I think I'm fine. She's right. Stephen A. Smith is right. Bennett is half right, but he doesn't realize that he and his party are to blame for everything that's happened. And, well, like I said before, we're popping the popcorn and enjoying the disintegration of the political left in America, because this is a party without direction and without any sort of aim. And honestly, I'm being completely genuine. I want there to be a strong and robust two-party system in this country, and I would like both of those parties to be sane. And I'm a Republican, and let me tell you something. We're not always very competent. We can't get our act together, and we screw up all the time. But at least we're not nuts. All right, that's it for today's show. Thank you so much. Oh, we got some super chats. Thank you, Alberto Gorin, for the €5. We appreciate it. We're going to put it to good use. Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate it. Hope everything's going well in Europe. Christian Ellithorpe with $5. Well, you couldn't pony up €1? Sorry. Hey, Larry, do you think sad man Jake Tapper will have anything to say about Trump and a third term? Oh, you think? Oh, my, I can't believe they didn't bust in all weekend with round-the-clock, red alert, breaking news, traumatic Jake Tapper on the couch of his psychotherapist coverage of this thing. Yes, I'm pretty sure Jake's coverage will be intense and glorious, and we'll look forward to seeing it ourselves. All right, guys, thank you for watching. And, hey, what do you think if we go blue back here? Are you on board with that? Let us know in the chat. If you like the blue, give us a thumbs up. If you do not like the blue, give us a thumbs up. And thanks for watching and subscribing. Should we go red? How about purple? Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. My name is Larry O'Connor, and you can call me Larry.